there are some customs that, especially the culinary one, that have a stronger influence than the actual laws of the holidays. If you were to divest a holiday from its custom, you'd face an outright revolution. I'll give you two examples that are giving the hardest time to nutritionists. So the first one is the latkes on Hanukkah. So the latkes on Hanukkah are the most tantalizing because they're hot, they have onion, they are fried, deep fried, and they're coming hot from the frying pan, and the whole house smells like it. So it's really, really hard to refuse any. This is something that people just cannot resist. Even if, you offer them baked one from Trader Joe, it's not going to cut it. So that's number one. Number two rated on the top list are the cheesecake on Shavuos, the holiday of Pentecost. Pentecost is the English name for Shavuos. It really means 50. Why is it called 50? Because we celebrated on the 50th day after Passover. And Pentecost by the Christian is also celebrated 50 days after the Easter Sunday. But Pentecost or Shavuot, like we call it, is the holiday of the week because we count 7 weeks. It's the holiday where we bring a special offerings of our first fruits to the temple when it was there. And it's a holiday that is now specifically marked by the commemorance of receiving of the divine law, the Torah, by the Jewish people. This is what made them into a nation, the acceptance of the law. So this, the truth is, the custom is only to eat something dairy. But I want to tell you something for people that are waiting all year long to have a piece of cheesecake, and that's the only time that they eat it, a cup of milk is not going to cut it. So interestingly enough, milk is white. And milk, also the whiteness of the milk, it symbolizes two things. First, modesty and humility. And it also symbolizes purity, clarity, like we say, crystal clear, like it's going through a prism and you don't see, and there's nothing. Actually, the prism transforms, but if you see through a glass, and you would not even know that the glass is there. That's why sometimes on the door, there is a red line that tells you, don't bang yourself into it because glass is very clear. So these two traits, humility and clarity and purity, are two traits that are the main characters of our teachers, Moses. Now, let's talk about what was received on that day of Shavuos on the Mount of Sinai. There was a covenant that was made. And at the covenant, there was an acceptance by the Jewish people of 613 commandments. And it was a real love affair. It was not like, tell me what's in there, I'm wondering, let me talk to my lawyer, let me talk to my accountant. It was just like, whatever you say, we will do. Whatever you want us to go, we will go. And anything that you ask, we saying yes, before we even look at it. That's, I know you're there for me, I know I'm here for you. That's called a real love affair. And that was a kind of a wedding that was happening that day on the mountain of Sinai, a wedding between God and his people. So what's in the Torah? 613 commandments. But as we know, there's only 369 that can apply today. And among them, Some of them apply only, let's say, if you are in this situation or if this happened, whatever. So what are the commandments that are technically and practically relevant to us on everyday level? There's about 270. So we went down quite a bit from 613. So from the 270 commandments that apply to everyone, there's 48 that are positive commandments, which means you do this and you do that. And there is 222 that are negative commandments, which means they're the kind of commandment that says, don't do this and don't do that. You shall not kill, you shall not steal, you shall not kidnap, you shall not, all kinds of things. And I just want you to realize the imbalance between the positive and the negative. There is a big trend nowadays about positive psychology, and you only tell people the good things, but apparently human nature is a little bit different. And you always have to contain it, and you always have to put boundaries and don't do this and don't do that, more than expanding and doing. That's not my position. That's what it is. 222 versus 48. That gives you an idea of the ratio. So now let's go back to when we talk about the receiving of the law through the prophet Moses. So Moshe Rabbeinu, as we call him, Moshe, our teacher, whatever he transmitted to us is eternal. It's not like, I'm telling you a story or history facts. There are laws and they are very deep, and he is the one who was chosen for the job of getting it and giving it over. This Torah, this divine law, is a learning. It's a teaching that has been transmitted to us. We have responsibility to learn and to teach it. And there is, I would say, a lot of knowledge in the world, because everything is comprised in the Torah. It says, turn it around and turn it around. You're going to find everything in there, because very often you see, okay, there's this new school of psychology or this new theory and this and that, and you always find that it has a root that is already there in the Torah, if you know how to look. So the knowledge in the world sometimes is in the open, and sometimes it is not. How does that happen? If it's been given already and transmitted to us in its entirety, how could it be that we don't know it? So I'll give you a little bit of an example, something that could happen, especially by women that keep a lot of things for a long time, let's say. So let's say someone go to the closet and there is a coat that they haven't worn for many years. And they say, what is this doing this? Maybe I should give it away, whatever it is, or maybe you want to use it again, whatever. You put their hands in the pocket, and what do you find in there? A jewel. There is a jewel there. And that jewel, you had completely forgotten about it. You didn't even know it was there. You had no idea you even misplaced it. You just forgotten about it. It was there all the time. It didn't disappear. It was there, but it was covered. It was in the pocket coat. So when you, but when you see that piece of jewelry, you remember it. You know it. You know it's yours, and it all comes back to you. And so it's like, oh my gosh, look at what happened. All of a sudden, you get this, like getting a new present. It's like you receive it, not for the first time, but as if it's for the first time. So the same thing that happens with knowledge. There's a lot of knowledge going around in the world. And sometimes this knowledge is in the open, sometimes it's not. How could it be that it gets forgotten? Well, it's like the jewelry in the coat pocket. It's being covered up. And then one day, all of a sudden, it reappears. So it's, let's say the fact that the earth is round. This was a knowledge. People knew about it. Then it got forgotten. Then it got rediscovered by someone. Then it got forgotten again. Then it got rediscovered by someone else who was put in great danger. And after that, people tried to eradicate it, but anyway, it came back to the surface, and then it stayed for real. And so sometimes, whether it's technical knowledge or humanistic knowledge, there's things that get forgotten and then they are resurfaced. And it's the same thing with the Torah. Sometimes things are hidden, and sometimes they are being uncovered. And when they are being uncovered, they sound like it's something totally new. Oh my gosh, look at this jewelry, now I have a new jewelry to wear. But it was always there. It was always yours. He just was not aware of it. And this is what happened with knowledge a lot. Different people uncover different things. They have what we call chidushim, like something that I just found out. I just figured it out. Let me tell you what I discovered. Yeah, we notice the word discovered is discovered. It was covered, you undid the cover, but it was always there. It's nothing new. And so when we learn Torah, it's the same thing. Moses gave us everything, but not everything is in our sight. Some of the things is hidden. And so when things are hidden and all of a sudden you discover it, you say, oh my gosh, look at this incredible idea that I came up with. And you're so thrilled about the newness of it. You just have to know that this was already there from the time of the giving of the Torah. It just got now rediscovered. So that's one thing that I wanted to say. When we accepted the Torah, God said, look, and this is what happened to Moses actually. When Moses went on Har Sinai, he was learning every day, trying to integrate all these lessons, which is a massive amount. Worked very hard, but he was forgetting it. Learn again, forgetting it. And he went on and on like that every day until time came for him to come down and transmit it. What is he going to transmit? God gave it to him as a gift. And this is what it says, that very often we work for something very, very hard. And we think that working very hard is going to give us the result that we want. But the truth is that we work and work and work. At the end, the result comes as a gift, whether it's learning, whether it's in business. Some people can be working on a deal for 6 months and nothing happens. Nothing happens from that deal. And then the next day, or from somewhere else, there's something that comes up, and in a moment, the deal is made. And it happens also in scientific discovery. People do research and research and research in the lab. And then one day, something happened, a mistake or something. And all of a sudden, it becomes the biggest hit. So when we learn Torah, it's the same thing. We need to put in the effort. We put in the effort, we work and work on it. But at the end, how we receive it is a gift. It's given to us. It says, Bamidbar Matana, it's a gift. And the reason is that anything that you can learn, you can also forget. How do you remember? It's a gift. Memory is a gift. Forgetting is also a gift, but that's a different story. So when we know that something has been given to us, we have to treat it accordingly. And coming to where it's coming from, that it's a divine gift, we really have to cherish it and pay attention to it. So remember, whatever we discovered, whatever great idea we come up with, it's been there before and included, everything has been already included in Torah Moshe, in the Torah that Moshe transmitted to us, Moses. Everything was given, including the 4 levels of understanding, and some of the thing is forgotten. It doesn't mean it's not there. It means that we haven't worked enough to get it to it. Now, let's go back to Moses. Moshe, as we said in Hebrew, he transmitted the whole Bible and the 4 levels of understanding it. This whole divine law got transmitted. The purity and the integrity of this transmission comes from the fact that his ego was non-existent. He was transparent. He didn't put his input in any sort of any kind, any amount. He was so humble that everything went through it like through a glass. I mean, a glass has some physicality, but Moshe, I don't remember which Mefarshim said that his shadow was more tangible than his body. So he was so transparent, and he was so unmaterial that things went through him without him putting any kind of input into what he was into the matter that he was transmitting. And this is the quality we admire in Moshe, and that was a necessity quality because of his humility. And we said the milk, the color white, reminds us of humility. This humility of Moshe allowed the transmission to go unhindered and perfectly genuine. So he put himself out. I don't want to say that, I put it in a nice way, self-effacement. Some people will say cancel, but I don't want to use that word because now cancel has a whole heavy meaning behind it, but he was not there. Things went through him. As a recognition to his self-effacing personality, Hashem, God said, you taking yourself out of the picture, I'm going to call this Torah, this divine law, I'm going to give it a name, Torah Moshe, the law of Moses. We call it the Mosaic law. So now that he acted as if it didn't matter, Hashem called him after his name, the law of Moses. Now, the mouth that transmitted and the body that transmitted this divine law had to be not only humble, but it had to be very pure and clear. Like we said, transparent, nothing hindering it. His body was kept very holy. From the very beginning, Moses was born to a woman who endangered her life at every moment by keeping children alive against the command of the king, Pharaoh, who ordered that all the boys should be thrown into the Nile. She did that for her own son, but she did that also for the other woman. And so she had such a self-sacrifice and such a purity of heart that she didn't matter. What mattered most were the other children, the other women that she took care of. She transmitted that character trait to her son, Moses, self-effacement. And if you remember the story of Miriam, the little sister, the older sister, she was older than Moses by a few years. She followed the basket into the Nile where her baby brother was, and she wanted to know what's going to happen. She was a prophetess at a very early age, and she knew something extremely great is going to come out of this boy. And she wanted to know. because once you know something, you want to see how it happens. She was very curious, like all the little girls. So she followed the basket. And when the daughter of the king Pharaoh, the princess of Egypt, reached out to get that basket and discovered this baby's crying, figured the baby's hungry, it's gonna nurse him. And Moses would not nurse from an Egyptian woman. And so Miriam, the older sister, came out of a hiding place and said to the princess, I know a woman who can nurse this baby. And she went to get her mother, and her mother nursed her own son, Moses. So why do we have to have that Moses at birth is already destined for greatness and can't have even the milk of an Egyptian woman? What's behind this? Let's go back. Let's go back. I'm saying about Egypt, but I want you to translate this into an actual, very current event, if I can call it like that. There is a civilization that is the top in technology, the top in science. Egypt, until this day, they don't understand how they could build the pyramid. Until they barely grasping what the pyramids were doing to figure out the astrology and all this knowledge that they have was incredible. They knew how to resuscitate people. They knew so many things that have been lost. Like I said, knowledge is there, it gets lost, and then it comes back. But Egypt was at the height of science, the height of civilization. It was the power of the day. Together with that enormous amount of knowledge came an immense depravity and immorality that was the worst in the world. That's how it is. And it's not the first time, and it's not the last time. People remember how German people were so polite. And people know how now in United States, the technology is so high and the morality is going down. Egypt was a country where you could have sexual relations with anyone. And this immorality, the permissiveness, was as big as the greed and the scientific knowledge. So, by the way, this is how civilizations fall. Civilization falls because the moral of the countries are gone. And so now there's no reason for that country to lead on the global level because the morals are not there. There's no backing. It's just a facade. And so it's very important to always make sure that a civilization keeps a good moral because that's what gives it its existence. Civilization do not fall because of outside conquerors. They do not fall because of lead poisoning in the earthenware of the soldiers or whatever it is. It falls because of the lack of morals and values, good values. So now, this civilization, Egypt, this is what it breeded. And Moses, who was the giver of the divine law, was not to have any integration by milk, even as a baby, of any of that through an Egyptian woman. That's why he was nursed by his mother. In memory of this man, Moses, who had this incredible purity. If you can imagine, I don't know if I should say that, somebody who's at the height of his country, he's the prince. He can do anything. And I'm saying anything because in the days it was like life and death. And he keeps not only integrity, he keeps such strong moral values that when he sees a person who is afflicted, a minority group in trouble, he descends from his high position and defends that person. That's the moral strength. That's the purity of conscience that he had. And so when you put this together, you see the humility that he had. You see the clarity, the purity that he had on all levels. When we drink milk or have dairy on Shavuos, that's what we're remembering. The person who gave us the Torah through his intermediary, that we received it through it, except for the first 2 commandments, but everything else came through him. He had to be so pure and so humble that he didn't leave his mark on it. It just went through it, complete and with integrity. So this is one of the reasons that on the 6th of Sivan of this month, that we are now Rosh Chodesh, we're on the 1st of the month. This is one of the reasons why we eat dairy on Shavuos, to remember that level of the purity of Moses. I'm not going to say the story of how Moses got elected to be king and he went down from his position. That's a level of humility that is also unheard of, and that most people, when they are put in position of power, have no ability to get down from it. They want to keep it. Once in power, they want to keep that power. Moses was at some point king. I don't want to tell the whole story, which is beautiful, but the Sefer HaYashar tells, and so you can look it up in the Me'am Loez, tell the story of how he was chosen to be king. And after he was king for many years, he was suggested for the wife of the previous king who had died. He didn't have any relations with her, but he was the king and he was officially the husband. I say just officially, but she decided after a while, when her son was in age of being a ruler, she demanded that Moses leave his position that he had been given by the whole nation so that her son could be king. And Moses, without saying anything, left his position. You will, I don't know, I can look, but I'm not aware of every piece of history in the world, but I don't know of anywhere where this happened besides Moses, that he was so humble that somebody tells him, okay, you're not the king anymore, okay, I'm leaving. It's just unbelievable. Anyway, another thing that I want to mention why we eat dairy on Shavuos. So now you're gonna think about cheesecake, blintzes, and all kinds of stuff, but let's go into a little bit of a spiritual endeavor here. When we eat something, what is going on? We say a blessing. A lot of people think that when we say Baruch Atah Hashem, it means blessed are you, God. It's not. It makes no sense for us to bless God. What it means is we recognize that you, God, the King of the universe, who makes everything happen and is the unifying and energetic source behind every atom, you are the one who makes this world be. This is what it means when we say Baruch Atah Hashem. It means that we recognize that Hashem is the source of everything. When we recognize that, and afterwards we eat, we are using the energy of the food to increase our awareness of the divine world and to serve it as best as we can. This is the goal of saying blessings before eating. After that, we eat. That food becomes part of our energy in our body, and we to use that energy to do our purpose in life. Now, before the flood, people did not eat meat. Meat was only eaten by human after the flood, for whatever reason. But I guess at some point there is a lowering of the level, and there is an extra need for a source of some kind of material nourishment. What happened when the Jews accepted the Torah on the Mount Sinai, they reached a level that was so high that they reached a level that was beyond, above what happened at the flood. At Mount Sinai, when everybody is united, when everybody is in love with God, and say, whatever you want, I'm going to do it. I'm going to follow you. I'm going to do anything. Just ask. No problem. I'm just going to do it. I'm here for you. You're here for me. That's it. We're in there together. At that moment where a whole nation, and God knows, if people are always trying to argue and find different and discussions and separation and things like that. But at that moment when the unity was so strong, and the love was so strong, and the desire to do for God was so strong, at that moment, they reached a level where they did not need anymore to eat flesh from an animal to receive its nutrition. In other words, when we eat, it's nourishing our body, it's nourishing our soul. If we use it for the right purpose, if we recognize what it's for, if we say a blessing before we eat, if we recognize that this is part of God's plan, and if we eat it, that's what we do with it. We have now obligations. That spirituality, that spiritual level, that we don't need to have this animal, materialistic, bloody, sanguine food. It was not a need anymore at that point when they accepted the Torah. So now they didn't need to have the meat, and by eating the milk from the animal, that was enough. In other words, the milk that came from the animal gave them the same strength that they would have gotten if they would have eaten meat. So it's a very high level. I think all the vegetarians are going to be really thrilled with this explanation, because it was not necessary anymore to eat the animal itself, but the milk was sufficient to achieve the extraction of energy from the animal. So that's another reason we eat meat. We eat milk and dairy, I should say, dairy. Don't want you to think that I want you to eat milk because you're going to want to have cheesecake or blintzes. So to remember the level of spirituality achieved by the Jewish nation as a whole nation, united in its willingness to align with the divine plan, we drink milk, we eat dairy on Shavuos. It doesn't mean that we don't eat meat. You can eat milk and then later on eat meat for a proper festive meal with wine, but we have this custom of having dairy. So two things we talked about. The milk reminds us of the purity and the clarity that was exemplified by Moses, who transmitted to us the Torah that was given on Har Sinai. And number two, the level that a whole nation achieved by being united in their purpose of serving their raison d'etre of being in this world. And that high level that they achieved, they didn't need to have meat anymore. The milk from the cow or milk from the goat actually was much more probable that was goat milk, was enough to give them that kind of strength. Now, there's one more thing that you need to know, because we talk about nutritionists that can go a little bit difficult job between Hanukkah and Shavuos. Everything in moderation. everything needs to be in moderation. In other words, everything needs to have a boundary. You're not going to have a whole cheesecake to yourself. Please share it with other people. Invite other people to share it with you. And think about why you're having it. Also, the calories that are in it, maybe. Now, I want to say that at this wedding, that was the Mount Sinai between God and the Jewish people. They served a dairy meal. I think we can make now a custom for event coordinator to make a trend of having dairy at wedding. I don't know if it's going to take. Anyway, on the subject of limits and boundaries that you should eat, my father used to say, everything in moderation. You can have everything, but not too much. On that subject, remember that the country of Egypt was known for his advances in all scientific knowledge. But when it came to morality, it was very bad and very low. It was the lowest that you can get. And the reason why is because their idea was to do good. So you say, what's wrong about this? It's a country of chesed. It's a country where you do good things. And the first thing that you do good is for yourself. Yes. So they did good for themselves, and they did not put any boundaries to the good that they wanted to get. In other words, it's chesed beneficence without any boundary and without limits is not beneficent. How can we put it another way? I don't know how to say it. If you have goodness and too good of it, it's not good anymore. In other words, that goodness was just directed to themselves, was directed to their own need, to their own purpose, and is not taking everybody into account. Like you have a whole nation, you're taking everybody into account. When you're united as a nation, you want everybody to have it good. But over here, it was like, I'm going to do what's good for me, and there is no boundary and there's no limit to it. So when there is no boundary, it's not going to work. When the Jews had experienced this incredible revelation on the splitting of the Red Sea, it was stupendous. And they said, oh my gosh, this is unbelievable. We want more of it. We want more of it. So Hashem said, God said, okay, you want more of it? That's okay. We're going to have revelation on the Mount Sinai. But that time, the revelation on Mount Sinai, there were limits to it. There were limits. There was Moses on top of a mountain. There was Joshua and at the bottom of the mountain. There were a group of people, the elders, Aaron, the priest, a little bit further, and further away, the people. In other words, according to the level, how much you can take, how spiritual you are, that's how much you're going to have of being close to the mountain, of being close and touching it. And if you touch it, if you come close, I'm warning you, you're going to die. It's not going to be good for you. It's going to be destructive. When you have a boundary, you know where's your post. Like on a boat, everybody on ship aboard, they know what you're supposed to be doing so that things function. Everybody knows their position. Everybody knows what their role is. Everybody knows what God gave them to achieve the goal that they're supposed to be doing. Everybody knows their position, and everybody knows what's allowed and what's not allowed. What's in the confine of morality and what's not. There are boundaries. You cannot say, you can do anything you want and it will go. This is destructive. When you have no limits on anything, it's destructive. You can come from a good place, or you want to be nice, you want to be good. But at the end, it's going to be destructive. And this is what we want to avoid. This is what happened on the Mount of Sinai. When the law was given, there was a position for everyone, and there was boundaries, and there was this place where you can be. And if you go beyond that, it's going to be destructive. You cannot say, oh, why can't I go? Moses is going, why not me? No, it doesn't work. Why can't this one do this and I cannot do that? No, it doesn't work. There's boundaries, and these boundaries are the confine of the Torah, of the divine law that was given to us, so we know where to go and how far we can go. So again, don't get too close, or else it's get destructive. Find what your boundaries are for yourself, for other people, in general. That's why there's rules and regulations. My goodness, if there's rules and regulations for an apartment building, you can imagine that for society, you also have rules and regulations. You can't say, do whatever you want, it will go. It's not going to be good. Moderation, know your limits, enjoy your cheesecake, and I'll see you next time. Have a very, very nice Shavuot and a very good Yom Tov. If you got anything out of this video and you think someone else could use it too, please share the link. And if you'd like to hear some more, please subscribe to the channel. See you next time.